Welcome to a new episode of Outside the Panels with your host, Johnny the Machine Hughes.
Welcome everyone to an episode of Outside the Panels. I am your host, Johnny the Machine Hughes, and joining me for this episode is another kick-ass Kickstarter project. Let's get in it. Let's get involved. It is the ultra talented, the ultra comedic writer creator Eric DaSilva. Eric, how's it going, man?
I'm pleased to be here. Very excited. This is awesome. Thanks for having me, Johnny. I'm very generally happy to talking about my book that's been developed for such a long time that now I get to geek out with somebody about it. So yeah, good times.
Cool. Excellent. You said it's been developed for a long time. How long has this project taken? Start to current.
Okay, so what we're seeing now, it was been the final phase of its development. Okay, long story boring. Before the dark days of the pandy and everything, I was a full-time stand-up comic. I was headlining, touring across the country, and which basically means Monday through like Wednesday, Monday through Thursday, I was a stay-at-home dad, and I would read my kids' bedtime stories, the whole thing. Then the pandemic hit, and so I'm at home all the time now, and I'm reading bedtime stories to my kids as I usually did, and finally got to the point they're like, Dad, we're bored of all these stories, and I was like, well, you got like we got it. We
get it. Red Riding Hood gets eaten by the wolf. We get it. We're done.
Yeah. There's nothing like get a remix in here, maybe drop a beat, like something, make it fancy, have fun, do something. So
red hip hop Riding Hood.
Yeah, so I got and I don't know if you can tell by my voice, but I can't carry a tune if it was strapped to my back. So I'm like, this is not going to work out. So I'm trying to figure out what to do now. Luckily, because of the pandemic, we were introducing them to a lot of different stuff they haven't seen before. So we had just got into like season 1 of Stranger Things. They just saw the Goonies. We had finished watching all of Gravity Falls. We saw one of the best versions of Scooby-Doo called Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated. It's on Netflix here in the US, and if you haven't seen it, it's the best Scooby-Doo you've ever seen.
No, right. The best Scooby-Doo is Scooby-Doo Where Are You from the 70s.
You know what? That's cool as an intro, but if you're a little more savvy, you want to go for the Mystery Incorporated Scooby-Doo. I'm just saying, give it a shot. It might impress you and impress the crap out of me. So they were very much into that kind of world of things. So I was like, I'm trying to think of something like that. You're a comedian. You make up jokes. Just make up a story. And I was like, all right. So because we were on that kick, I started making up this story. And I, try to make it funny, try to make it fun, a little spooky, a little adventure, and I nailed it. For at the end, they're like content, which is all you needed. Was like, that's a good story. They went to bed. And then the next night, I was like, what do you guys want to hear now? They're like, we want to hear the same story from last night. I was like, oh, okay. I was riffing. I didn't pay attention to anything. So let's go again. So I'm trying to tell a story, what I remember. They're correcting me the parts that I didn't know. And this went on for a week. And so by like day 6, day 7, I was like, it's like a joke. I know how to tell it now. I know the beats. I know where it's funny. I'm ready to go in. And I'm like, you guys ready for a story? And my kid's like, yeah, we want a new story. I was like, you jerks. I can't believe. Like, I'm not. And I wish I was an idea machine, but my brain is slow. So you got to give me some slack. And they're like, no, Dad, we want a new adventure, but with those same characters. I was like, oh, okay. So we can kind of play around a little. So we started doing that. Next thing you know, they're like correcting me on stories. And I'm telling you, like, that doesn't happen because that happened 2 stories ago. It's like, oh my God, now there's canon. I got to figure this out now. I'm literally writing notes to myself, like, this is a cliffhanger here and this resolved here. And I'm like, oh, so. And then when, things started opening up and they started having sleepovers again, their friends are like, can you tell us the stories that you've been telling your kids? Because they've been telling us while we're playing Roblox or like Minecraft, they've been telling us about what your story is. So I'm taking requests. It's crazy. So through stand-up, I had eventually met this woman who was an executive producer for children's animation. And she said she was looking for a project. I said, I kind of think I have one. I've never done any kind of like children's entertainment animation before. We had a meeting and she loved it. And we started putting the show together. I reached out to a bunch of my comedy friends to do voices for it, and looked like it was going like pretty good. And then it got to like the head of the streaming service, and they're like, "Hey, this all looks great. What book is this from?" And I'm like, "Oh, this is original property." They're like, "Oh, we're only going for pre-existing media," which was a major kick in the junk. So I was like, okay. So me and the executive producer got back together. And we're like, what are we going to do now? What did we just abandon a project? And I kind of put out, I was like, well, why don't we just make a graphic novel out of it? And she's like, that's great. Let's do that. So I picked out 3 episodes that I'd already like outlined, and I turned them into scripts, and I made it into a 3-chapter graphic novel, about 100 pages, and started on the quest of developing this book. And I went through, found an amazing artist named Saba. His name is Giuseppe, but his artist name is Saba, and he's in Italy. And we, he saw the vision I had and just elevated everything to another level. And eventually I started submitting to try to see if I can get into any kind of combo companies. And a small combo company in Kentucky called Kinetic Comics said, "This looks awesome. We'd love to work with you on it." And so we got to here, and now I'm promoting the book.
Cool. Excellent.
It's a journey.
It is. So basically, you lied to me when you said you were the writer creator. What we're saying is the kids are the writer creator.
Well, they were the inspiration. I wrote these stories. They were bitter. They were like, "No, sorry, try it again. I'm feeling this time." I was like, "You guys are animals."
I have to say, just go back to Scooby-Doo saying, I prefer Daphne's legs in the old cartoon, not the new one.
Sorry. Hey, listen, that everyone, I feel like Scooby-Doo is like Star Wars. Everyone has an era. Some people are original trilogy, some people are prequel people, some people are sequel, some people are Mandalorian people. So like it is everywhere. Everyone's got a version of it.
Fair enough. Fair point. I'm gonna look through the stuff you sent me across. I never thought Stranger Things. I didn't think that. I was thinking Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. I was thinking a little Harry Potter in there. I didn't even think of Stranger Things. I mean, I must be the only person on the planet who's not watched this show. Everyone says, "Oh, it's right up your street. You need to watch it." I'm like, do I? I mean, I haven't even seen Game of Thrones, so what do I know, right?
Yeah, that's a little bit hardcore. A little more hardcore.
Yeah. Well, someone dies, someone comes back as a dragon. I don't know.
Kind of the
same. When you think about the different influences that exist in the world at the minute, you mentioned Stranger Things. I mentioned Harry Potter. The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe is probably the biggest kind of secret, hidden room story kicking around. How hard is it to kind of steer clear of those sort of, not imitations, but inspirations, I suppose?
Well,
because you want to see it's like the same ingredients that goes in 2 different meals, but one time you make chili and one time you make spaghetti. So kind of how do you get to mix and match that?
That's a really good question, because I'm a comic book fan clearly for over I'm in my 40s, so I've been collecting comics for about like 30 plus years at this point. So I have seen and I've read books and movies, and I've seen all the tropes. I know, like, oh, this is this, and that's a that, and this is this one over here. So part of the fun for me was, let me think of a trope and then twist it on its ear. Like, what's the angle? Like, not run away from it, but like literally take your, like, I'm considering everyone to have watched at least one version of something I've seen 10 times. So if we all have seen one version of it, where's that angle that no one's really done before, where I can kind of take it and put a twist it and use your preconceived notion as part of the allure and the flip to the whole thing. So that's kind of like, so I don't run away from it. I'm very aware of all the things I'm putting in this massive blender, this casserole of ideas that I'm putting out there. But I also like that. But I'm completely not only aware of it, but I'm counting on you to think that you know what's going to happen, and then flipping those perspectives on and making it fun. Like I nothing sucks more as a comedian or as a person when you go see a type of art, or you meet a type of person who feels like you're trying too hard. Like, it's like, dude, just, if it works, it's going to work. And if it doesn't, just walk away. And part of that is that when you are trying to entertain a kid, they can sense authenticity real easy, and they'll let you know that's cool, or I like that, or like that sucks. And so they will let you know with no apathy or concern to your feelings, like, no, all this is not working. So like having kids be on board was always like the first check mark. I'm like, oh, that's cool. And then, but writing away where, yeah, this 12-year-old might be reading this, but this 40-year-old parent might be reading with their kid. And if they like it too, but for different reasons, then I know I did the job right, which is I'm taking that trope, that thing we all know, by hitting it 2 different ways.
And I suppose that's the kind of promise that stuff like Harry Potter, The Simpsons, a ton of Disney products and animation works, is the fact that you've got the slapstick or the funny going on for the kids, and then there's the adult joke, the double entendre or whatever for the adults that kind of get past that,
Absolutely.
And all that sort of stuff. So let's talk about the book. It's called D.A.N.G.E.R Squad. Great name.
Thank you.
Yeah. What's the story? Give us the 411.
So the general gist of the story is there's a character named Leon Guerrero, and he is him and his family are moving into this town because his parents got a new job working for this technologies and web app company, and Leon is the new kid, the fish out of water, trying to figure things out. And so I'm originally from New York, and I grew up in my first 10 years in New York. I went back in my 20s to my 30s. And if you live in New York's amazing. There's 100 billion things to do in New York. But if you live in New York, you will, for whatever reason, not do the things that people will dedicate an entire vacation trip to do. Like, I lived in New York for so long. I've never been to the Statue of Liberty. I know where it's at. It's incredible. It's an amazing thing. If you've never seen it, go. If you've never been to it, explore it. But I've never been to Statue of Liberty because, as most New Yorkers, just felt like, yeah, that's just it's a thing. So whatever.
Yeah, that's a human thing. I live in the northeast coast of England, and the beach is less than 20 minutes away from me. I hardly go down to the place, But it's like everyone's like, "Wow, you live by the beach." I'm like, "Well, yeah, it's just the beach, man."
Yeah, but it's just the beach. It's not practical to you. So what would happen if this kid who's used to regular life starts living in the city, this town, there's weird thing, like things don't make sense. Things are like 3 degrees off. Right. He notices it, and it was like, oh yeah, that's just the way it is. Like, they never really sort of like will figure like, why is this place weird? And when he finally discovers something so weird that no one believes him, he sort of like, listen, you guys said there's something weird here. I literally found something that is way weirder than anything you thought happened. We should try to figure this out. And by trying to figure out this one thing, they slowly start to discover that there's a massive history of weird in this town, of strange and unexplained. And everything you discover leads to 2 more questions. And, it's just, nothing feels forced, but everything is sort of like, the deeper you go, the deeper you fall. And so that's kind of like the concept of the book is, imagine everything that you've ever seen in a comic book, in a movie, in a story about ghosts, cryptids, monsters, aliens. It all exists, but it's nothing you expected. It works completely different than anything you think it does, but they're all there. And how do you figure all this out? And, the kids, I try to say, the kids are like if they were in the Goonies or in Scooby-Doo. They're having fun with it, but the monsters are real and the threat is a problem. And so you have this sort of like breakdown of like, they don't realize how much danger they are because they're children, but it is a problem.
Kids have that bravery of ignorance, don't they?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
They don't know. No, it's not hard. It's fine, or whatever. So I get it. We've all been kids. We've all done stuff before.
My son just turned 11, and I literally told him the other day, "Hey man, be careful with that." He's like, "I'm not going to fall down." I go, "No one plans on falling down. You just fall down sometimes." So that's why you have to be prepared. So,
you say you're from New York, so I've got to ask the question. I always ask this of everybody who tells me their hometown. Are you a Jets or a Giants fan?
Well, I grew up in Queens, New York, so automatically Spider-Man fan. And if you are a Spider-Man fan, you understand people in Queens, we get a lot of bad luck. And for whatever reason, things don't quite work out for us. So I'm a Mets fan, and
Mets.
unfortunately, I'm a Jets fan because they were the closest to me to make watch, so I can go watch the games. So I have a series of. I have a series of being a fan towards losers, and it's just one of those things.
Okay. Well, let me throw some less than shade on this for you. In my house, I'm a Yankee hater. I have a Florida Marlins jersey because that's when I started watching baseball when the Marlins beat the Yankees. I have a Red Sox jersey because if you hate the Sox, you've got to love the. Sorry, if you hate the Yankees, you've got to love the Sox.
Right.
And I have a New York Mets jersey. There you go. The three teams.
So you look at that.
That said, I'm a Miami Dolphin fan since the 80s. So
okay, here's the thing. I moved from New York to Miami, so I too am a Marlins and a Dolphins fan because, like I said, I like losing. So there you go. Yeah.
Hey, we're going to the playoffs. We don't have Aaron Rodgers falling down.
Listen,
listen,
you can brag about making it to the playoffs, or you could say, "Hey, we got knocked out on the first round of the playoffs." So it's not like
yeah, I suppose. Do the Jets? can the Jets spell the word playoffs? I don't know.
Oh, the Jets are never the playoffs. I know. No part of me is trying to say one is better. I'm just saying it's a pool of losers, and I'm in. That's what I'm saying.
All right, fair enough. Fair enough. Football aside, then. Right,
Look,
I've got to keyed up your website. So here we go. What impressed me with the website is that there's a theme song. I don't normally get a lot of theme songs. I've got to be said. So let's see if we can have a listen to this theme song and see how this goes. I've heard it a couple of times. I really quite like it. So here we go. He says pressing the button, nothing happened. There we go.
Oh, that's weird. Oh.
There it is.
So I'm glad you like it. There's some major Doctor Who influences in there. So
Okay.
So I'm sure it's because you're in the UK, there's automatically there's an affinity for it, but there is a little bit of Doctor Who in there. There's a little bit of Gravity Falls in there. There's a little bit of Buffy in there. That was created by the wonderful Marisol Krauss. She is a wonderful musician that I know, and she did this for me as a favor, and I am eternally grateful for her.
That's the Harry Potter thing I was kind of thinking of.
Yes.
With the thing. Although, you know, you've got robots, ghosts, E.T. and aliens. That's pretty cool. Yeah, cool. You've done danger as an anagram. Does it stand for something?
It does. If you go to the danger updates, the second update, we break down what danger stands for.
That changed on the page. Let's just check. Yeah, it has. Perfect. Oh. Second update. Read more. Let's read more. Oh, it's probably gone to a different page now, has it? Yes, it has. 2 seconds then. We've because it's gone to a new screen, so I have to find that one as well.
Okay, but for your readers to let you know, danger stands for dark anomalies, nightmarish ghouls, exciting rescues.
There you go. It's on there. Should be on the screen now, I think. It will be in 2 seconds. There it is. Dark anomalies, nightmarish ghouls, exciting rescues. Pretty much what it does what it says on the tin, is what we're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Excellent. Right, we're going to take a quick break for our other shows. And when we come back, we're going to have a look at some of the fantastic art you mentioned. We'll also get into your comic book history. You know, you say you've been collecting comics for a while. Let's see what you made of, as it were. So You know what? You've talked about this being kind of like a multimedia project. So I think it's only fair that we give you the opportunity to see what could happen if McFarlane gets involved. Time for a crisis. There you have it, Crisis of the Toyverse for all you figure fans. Yes, Bobo takes them out of the package. Yes, Bobo plays with them. Sorry, don't yell at me. I like the advert, and I also noticed you've got, I think that's a Wolverine Series 1 figure right back there from Toy Biz, I believe it is, if I remember correctly from that. You know what? That's good eyes on me, I've got to say. So obviously a figure fan. So there you go. How cool would it be to have some Danger Squad figures?
Well, I could kind of tell you this right now as a special treat since we're talking about it. For the Kickstarter, we have, Kickstarters have tiers. The highest tier, which I guess would be the first reveal, the highest tier would be called the Super Duper Danger Squad. If you invest into that one, you will get a 4-inch random minifigure of one of the kids from Danger Squad, and it glows in the dark.
Sweet. That sounds perfect. Super duper. I thought you were talking about Mark Duper from the Miami Dolphins there. We said super duper. I was like, oh, interesting.
Oh, no.
No more football. Promise. Well, I said promise. Right, let's get into some art. I think, because comics are a visual medium as much as a writing medium. As a stand-up comic, you used to being kind of your own persona, the whole everything. How hard is it for you to kind of hand the ball off to someone to create something that you think, well, I've got an idea, I've got to trust somebody else to pull it out and do what I need?
Well, the thing is, when you're writing it, you're essentially not just a storyteller, but you're like the director too, which is part of one of the reasons why I'm so glad I'm such a big movie nerd, where I'm like, oh, I love a shot like this, and I'll make an angle like that. And then Saba just comes in and takes what I'm saying and goes, oh, you mean like this? And then I'm like, oh, that looks kind of cool. And he's so great at like putting like an energy to everything. It feels like they're still frames from a cartoon. Like that's how great like his shot composition is. And I remember when we first started working together, he's like, listen, my pencils may look a little messy, but I'm also going to ink and color everything. So as long as you like the position, I'll take care of everything else. So by the time he gets colored, I'm like, oh my God, this is great. Like any kind of like, I didn't see where you were doing. And then you presented me all this. It's fantastic. So he's so great in taking my words. And sometimes if he's like, I don't understand, I will literally just take him like screenshots of like a movie that I'm trying to reference. Like, it should look like this. And he's like, oh, perfect. And then he just goes off and takes it from there. And he just does it. This really inventive, collaborative effort, taking everything that, like, luckily, because this was originally a project that was going to go to animation, I had some people already designed the characters and the monsters, so it kind of saved them a lot of time of having to kind of come up from scratch. But his shot composition, the fluidity of his movements, it just gets every page is just better than the last. I can't wait for everyone to see it.
Cool. And we're going to have a look at some of the pages before we get to the end of the show, so that's cool. Do you write a full script then, Eric, or are you do you give kind of pointers and then kind of, and I suppose with having told the story to the kids so many times, that serves its own editing process to an extent, where you,
I
said,
do.
beats.
I do write a full script. I'm from the Alan Moore, Michael Bendis school of script writing, where just like, put it all there. So, the artists can do whatever they want with it, but they'll never wonder, what does this mean? Or what would you, I'd rather give more information than less. But I tell the artists, like, listen, if you have a better take on this, flip it and we'll go somewhere else. There's a shot in the second chapter that is the three kids texting each other. And I had no idea how to make that shot work. I just said they're texting each other at night. And he did this beautiful one pager, but it just flows so seamlessly. I'm like, dude, you nailed it. Like I had no idea what I was talking about. And you just came in and put it all. It's fantastic. That was one of my favorite shot composition pages that he does. And it just, but I do write the full script because I want him to know what they're saying. Sometimes if you just put the action, there's no context of why are they running up a hill or why are they hitting this thing. So read, and then you're like, okay, I now I get the feeling, the motivation, and then you can kind of apply that to the page. And we figured out it's a great system.
I think that's a great observation, mate. Actually, Eric, the fact that characters, whether it be adults or kids, are pretty much attached by some sort of technology called somewhere online. So having a comic book story set in the modern day and you not have mobile phones, it's disingenuous. It doesn't ring true. So that means you've got to have phones. Then so how do you make that work? You can't just you've got to make it so people can recognize it for what it is, and also help move the story along. You can't just be like an Apple versus an Android.
Well, out of the 3 or 4 kids that are in D.A.N.G.E.R Squad, right now, only 2 of them have phones because one doesn't really like having a phone. The other one feels like she doesn't need it. So, but there's reasons why. It's because she already carries a lot of stuff with her, so she doesn't have space for another thing. So she'd rather be free, and so she doesn't want a phone on her. But the 2 that do have phones, they're very specific about why they have phones. It's not just to have it. There's motivation. As a matter of fact, if you go on the website, when you look at Kevin is my avatar to movie nerds kids. Like I was a kid movie nerd from the jump, where we used to watch like black and white movies and then watch modern movies. And I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. They're doing the thing. And I remember you get excited about that and always wanted to know more. And so I imagine Kevin as my description to the artist was like, he is a 12-year-old boy who has the potential to be the next Quentin Tarantino, even though he's not allowed to watch Quentin Tarantino movies. So that is Kevin. He's all about constantly trying to figure out, how to make a shot work, whatever the situation is. So.
Cool. Excellent. Have another look at this is another page on the first page. I like when I looked at this earlier today, the European element stood out massively for me. I see a lot of European style artists, as you'd expect. I also like the kind of the animation style. You could see that it looks animated already. For some daft reason, I've got the Jetsons in my head on that top panel. I don't know what's going on there. I don't know why I'm thinking the Jetsons. It could be the color scheme. I don't know.
That's great company. Cool.
Meet George Jetson. Yeah, don't get me singing. People will turn and then you've kind of got the slapstick going on here with these characters. I love the kind of exaggerated, characteresque art, which I think just is going to down the line add to the zany, hopefully, and the surreal elements of stuff going on. I know people are going to say, "Johnny, show me more art," and I'm not going to because I want you to go back to the project. These are just tasters. They'll taste it.
Just a little bit. For the first sample's free, guys, and then afterwards you got to come back. You got to pay Papa. Absolutely. So,
first jokes for free. Come back for the punchline. Maybe don't use that as a tagline. I just like the style of it. How much back and forth did you have with? Sorry, his name's Serbo. You said
Saba.
Sorry. How much back and forth was there with? Because you're absolutely right. Writers, especially indie writers such as yourselves, tend to be their own editors in the get-go. So how much back and forth was there?
Well, in the beginning, we didn't even once we agreed to start working together, we didn't even I didn't send him the script right away. We just spent like a week texting each other, talking about what I want, what inspired me for the book, and the kind of like styles I feel like this would be. Like when I talked to Saba, he's such a versatile artist, and he was like, so what style are we talking about here? Because I have several styles I can do. And I was like, is it weird that I'm thinking somewhere between Pixar and Mike Mignola working on a Tim Burton film? That's the idea of it. Huh. And he's like, okay, that's weird, but we can try to make that work. And so we went back once we talked about like the each character's motivation, like what their personalities are like. He took like a couple of days, and he just came back with these character designs. He goes, what do you think of this? I'm like, dude, this is great. This is exactly what I was thinking about. And so once that happened, it just sort of grew from there. But it was really just talking about personalities and like art styles that I enjoyed, art styles that he liked, different types of movies and stuff, and just kind of pushing all those together to get to where the book eventually ends up.
Cool. Again, another great. Actually, I'm such a nerd. A great setup here. Discussion pieces, shadows, colors, shadows again. It's just, it works so well. And I have to say that on the third page, I've got this one. Let's have a look. Which one is it? This one, page 3. I am keeping the animation theme alive. I don't know if anyone remembers Wait Till Your Father Gets Home. That's the top. Just wait. You know, the way the car works against the house. I'm such a nerd. I am such a nerd.
But that's why we did it. That's the whole reason. It's because I want you to feel like, you've seen this, but not like this, and you're getting all those like little member berries and those sensations, like, oh, that's kind of cool, but it doesn't play out the way you expect it to be. And so this whole series, much like the bedtime stories that I made up for my kids, it's an homage to what they know, but then giving them something completely different that makes it fun. So it's sort of there's that sense of like of familiarity, but then when the new hits, you're like, oh, cool, this is even better. So that's exactly what we're going for.
Cool. Let's talk a little bit about your comic book history then. You mentioned Moore and Bendis. So I assume that they are your inspirations.
Definitely. I know everyone says Alan Moore. Everyone says Bendis.
Moore. I mean, Moore. I don't mean to read on your parade, but Moore, as much as he's loved for Swamp Thing, he can be reviled for the Killing Joke.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And here's a crazy thing. I know now Killing Joke is very problematic. I totally understand, but the core conceit of the story and its execution is still something that resonates, and it delivers. Was it insensitive? Yeah, but it was all the 80s was insensitive. So I'm like, I understand that. I listen, especially as a comedian, you can listen to jokes from like the 50s and 60s that do not work at all anymore. But you go like, I get it why they're laughing then, because at the time that was considered cool. But
so, and I think you've rescued that statement, because for me, I think Killing Joke's a work of art, cover to cover without. And yes, I understand people say, well, it's misogyny, it's mistreatment of women, Batgirl shouldn't, blah blah blah. That's all right. That's looking at it with today's lens, going back nearly 30 years of, if not longer, of why this book doesn't work. And unfortunately, you can't do that. It's like watching Star Wars: New Hope. And bear in mind, I'm old enough to remember when that was just Star Wars. And then saying, oh, that shot of the Death Star in the blockade when it should be better than CGI. Yeah, it might be, but it wasn't, because it's still great now, so shut your face. So you kind of always look back and say, and apply today's rules or today's societal expectations on stuff that's already been written, already been created. You just got to take it for
Absolutely.
what it is.
Absolutely. And
Um,
so I will say, I remember reading Bendis's Torso and his Power series, and I was like blown away. Like, this is amazing. Like I loved reading uh 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 right now one of my favorite writers is Jed McKay, or McKay.
Me too. I
Uh,
love him. I've interviewed him twice on this
oh
show.
really?
So,
Oh man,
yeah,
he's
yeah. Back when he was doing Black Cat,
yeah.
and then just as the first run, and then just as he was getting ready to go from Black Cat to Avengers. So
His Moon Knight just made me. I'm like, this guy's figured out how to make Moon Knight work. I love Moon Knight to begin with. I got Moon Knight figures somewhere around here. But I love all the stuff he's doing now. I also, I mean, how do you not just gush over people? I'm drawing a blank right now because you caught me off guard. But there's so many writers that I'm generally a fan of that I just like cherish all their work. And Chris Claremont's Uncanny X-Men run, 14 years, that taught me a lot of laying seeds about things and then just waiting and then having to come back. It's almost like, if you want to look at it, Chris Claremont was like the proto version of what like Jonathan Hickman does now, where he just
yeah,
one panel and he waits 4 years, and that panel is the crux of the entire 6 year storylines we're building off of. You're like, what is going, like, that's the kind of stuff where I don't feel like for this kind of book I can wait that long. So I start setting up questions and then paying off at least one question every issue or every chapter of the book, because I want you to feel rewarded, but I'm always giving you more questions.
so this for me, I think, is probably indicative of your original audience. If you're reading, like, if you sort of create the story for kids, predominantly kids don't have the, no disrespect to anybody's kids, I say that now. Kids generally don't have the patience to wait for the long play. They want to like the payoff straight away. So you can
Absolutely.
only have only hold that level of suspense for so long. But then you've done the right thing, absolutely, by giving them that answer whilst laying the next question down. And
That's
now
it.
they're still engaged, and they're still engaged. You
Yeah,
know,
so you're never stuck on like what's happening.
yeah.
This is the big, oh no, but then what about
Mhm.
this? Now we got to go over here. And that's the whole thing, is leaving those breadcrumbs. And I love that. And as an adult, you could start noticing things too. Like, if just in the 3 pages you showed, there's a little, one of the panels has a little thing in the background just to let you know, like, this world is not you completely 100% normal. There's a little weird thing right there. If you paid attention to it, you catch it. And if not, it's there. But it's just those little things to let you know that there's always something in the background you got to be paying attention to, because the kids don't notice it because they're just moving the story along. But if you take a second to look at these panels, there might be a thing here, there might be something there, and it just slowly builds out.
It's on page 2. I think I've seen it.
Yes.
Just say that's what I do. All right. So it's not interesting there because I mean, different writers. Bendis, great. Moore, fantastic. Claremont, someone say long-winded. I loved his Miss Marvel stuff as much as his X-Men stuff, to be honest. But hey ho.
And also Garth Ennis,
He,
by the way. Garth Ennis's
yeah,
Preacher. I know it sounds weird to say Garth Ennis's Preacher
nope.
contributed to this, but it totally did. And it's very subtle, but there's little elements of it that we have that is very much because of the way Preacher structured his stories too.
Yeah. So we've just recently had Real Times Comic Book Show look at the final issues of series as their theme for the week, and that was a few weeks ago before I took the summer break. The final issue of Preacher was featured. So there you go. Cool. This is your Kickstarter page. It is in preview mode at the moment. Let's see. You can register to get notifications. Go to Kickstarter, type in D.A.N.G.E.R Squad. It'll turn up. You'll find it. Don't blame me for the long link. It's Kickstarter. What do you expect?
If you want to
But
get
there
there
is
easier, just go to dangersquad.com and there's a link right there. So,
I was going to do that.
oh, all right, I'm just trying to help.
I appreciate that. So that's the thing. You can click to notify on launch, and therefore you will get the notification from that point of view. As Eric has already primed, you can go to D.A.N.G.E.R Squad. Where was it? It was the squad homepage. Let me get there in 2 seconds. Flying around like a technical wizard I am. There we go.
Well, while you're bringing it up, I'll mention a little something extra too. So
Go for
we
it.
are getting ready for the campaign to go live. It's going to go live in August. One of the things we're doing, and if you look at the video, you're kind of seeing it. The video's a little glitchy, and every once in a while you'll see this random character show up for no reason. That character is the unofficial mascot of this secret campaign, and his name is Dr. Mystery. And Dr. Mystery is the world's greatest crypto conspiracy theorist. And he is having this whole like sub campaign trying to reveal the mysteries of the town where this book takes place. So if you go to the website, you will find segments of where he's hacked things or he's adjusted the text about things, slowly setting up these clues. And the closer we get to campaign launch, you'll start getting. You can check out on our social media pages like X and Threads and everything else. Some of the texts are been hacked by binary code. That's to let you know Dr. Mystery has been there. So watch those videos and you'll see little hacks into those as well. Then it's all sort of contributing to this big master plan that we have coming up with the campaign and what Dr. Mystery is doing as well. So just a little, if you like those ARGs, alternate reality games and everything else, we got some fun stuff planned with not only the book's campaign, but Dr. Mystery's campaign into the book as well.
Cool. So there you go. There is a quick, easy link to your country to Kickstarter that we talked about. If you are wanting to keep in touch with social media, boom, there it is. Yeah, so Instagram, Twitter. Yes, I still call it Twitter. That's the way it is. The world. Sorry. TikTok and Threads. There you go. At D.A.N.G.E.R Squad. Oh, there you go. Cool. Right, we're running out of time, Eric. So now is your 60-second warning. That's all normally the Dolphins need to score or to draw a lead. Just saying. Give us your best elevator pitch of why people should be heading over to the Kickstarter and checking out D.A.N.G.E.R Squad.
Guys, if you are a nerd about movies and comic books and horror movies specifically, if you have your favorite kind of monsters, whether it's a nightmare, a dream monster, or an alien, or a cryptid, and you like mysteries and you love to appreciate something that you could just have fun with, but if you have a kid, if you have a nephew or a niece, and you're like, oh, I would love to kind of bond over this is the book. I wrote it for originally entertaining my kids and eventually wanting all the kids to read it to like it, but also I know as a parent, sometimes when reading a book to your kids, it's boring and it is like dragging a nail through your skull and you're like, and I was like, it would be great if we could read something we all had fun doing. And that's the point and the objective and the reason why D.A.N.G.E.R Squad became is I wanted to tell fun stories for the youngest nerd, maybe not too young, because I've heard like certain 7-year-olds got creeped out for the book, and I'm like, that's even awesome. 35% of children will be creeped out. I will take that. But if you are a 50-year-old nerd parent or just a nerd and you just like good stories, this is the way to go. So if you like Gravity Falls, Stranger Things, A Lion Witch in a Wardrobe, all that, you're gonna dig this book.
Cool. Thank you so much. Eric, you've been an absolute star. Thank you for taking time out to talk to me. I really appreciate it, man.
Thank you for talking to me, man.
All right. Excellent. That's it for this show. Before we go, I do need to have a quick word. This is the last episode of Outside the Panels that I will be hosting. I have to say a big shout out to everybody on the Undercover Capes and the Comic Crusaders website, and to people like Eric and all the guests that have been on the show, from Kickstarters to indies to DC guys to Marvel guys to people who created books, podcasts, comic conventions. We've covered the whole thing. We have truly been outside the panels. It's been my honor and my pleasure to be running this show for this length of time. But as you've seen on other shows on the UCPN and the Comic Crusaders, things are getting a revamp. It happens to every universe. It happens to ours. So stay tuned to UCPN and Comic Crusaders for a whole new swathe of podcasts about your favorite hobby. And of course, you'll always find me where the old guys never lie. That's the Old Timers Comic Book Show. So for me, one last time on Outside the Panels, I have been Johnny the Machine Hughes. I have been your host. Thank you so much for listening and watching. It's that time. Adios.
Visit undercovercapes.com for the latest and greatest podcasts via the Undercover Capes Podcast Network. Also visit our parent company website, comiccrusaders.com, all about comic pop culture.